pose it that way.
That works for me. And when we get to the question part, no question is off limits. Ask any question that you want. Don't feel embarrassed by it. I will answer every question, but if you're answering from a point of malicious intent, you'll probably get a snotty answer back. If it's just a general question, don't worry about how clunky you think you may be trying to phrase it. That happens a lot. Okay? There's only one question that I will not answer. I have been doing this now for 7 years. I don't know whether I'm up to 300 of these or not. It hasn't been answered yet, so don't worry about it. And if you do ask it, I'll be polite about it. All right? Today is about learning. Are we ready to go? Okay. And you're ready to go as well. Well, thank you, Andrea, for inviting me again to be able to talk to you about the transgender experience. A lot of people know about the lesbian and gay community, but they don't know a whole lot about the transgender community. So we're going to go over a lot of areas regarding the transgender life to hopefully give you an idea of who we are, why we are, and some of the things that we need to do in our lives to become whole and authentic unto ourselves. You have been seeing people here on our screen, all of whom were transgender. This was not a test. I had one student in one class furiously writing down, transgender and then not transgender and maybe. And when I said that everybody's transgender, it kind of went like, really? The reason I do this is I want you to see who we are, what we do, which is we look just like you. We do all of the things like everybody else does. We're teachers and scientists and iron workers and so forth. I do want to talk about a couple of people briefly who are up here, one of which is Lynn Conway, who was a mathematical genius coming out of college. She was involved in the early computer researches with IBM and helped develop the first supercomputer called the Cray supercomputer. She needed a transition. She does. She gets fired from IBM. She later reconstructs her life and is then rehired later in the mid-70s by Xerox, and then again is involved in the development of our computers with what is called then very large-scale integration. If you've ever seen the design on a computer chip, and it's gone from very large scale to ultra to mega to just, let's not even think about it anymore. The same basic architecture on our computer chips today is still the one that she and a co-researcher developed back in 1975. Another person I want to talk about is Ben Barris, who is up here briefly, because I know we don't have a lot of time. Ben, in his former life as Barbara, graduated from MIT, works at Stanford as a neurobiologist, is a PhD, and at that level of academia you do a lot of research. It's called publish or perish. So Barbara goes out and is presenting her studies and her results and her research, and then gets to the point in her life where she needs to transition and becomes Ben. And it is at one of the first times Ben is now out presenting and talking about the research that has been going on in his life, that after it's all done, he overhears the comment as people are kind of mingling, wow, that was fabulous. Ben's a whole lot smarter than his sister. And when I say that, usually the women in the room get it and the guys in the room go, what? You literally can't be smarter than yourself. But it's a true story. I am going to talk about somebody, however, who is not up here. And this is kind of going to get to the idea that we're not who you may think we are. A lot of people, when they hear about transgender people, particularly transgender women, the instant image is the drag queens, right? RuPaul, gorgeous legs, I'd love to have them. She's not real. The other is that I had to have been maybe the shy little boy that hung around mom too much and liked all things girls and dolls and pink. That happens in our lives, but is really a very small portion of the transgender community. The person I want to talk about to help get this notion that we're not who you think we are in your mind, her name was Dee. She's no longer with us. In her former life, Dee served in the military. Not just the military. She was Green Beret, Army, Special Forces in Vietnam. And she was actually elite within the Green Beret Special Forces unit. So much so, she had been psychologically profiled and paired with one other Green Beret member. And their time together in Vietnam was to go work as a two-person destruction team. We're not going to make any value judgments here about war. Their job, literally, their instructions, go. Do, destroy, disrupt. We don't care what you do, but don't come calling for us. The cavalry's not going to come and save you. Now, I don't know about you, but in the middle of the night, in the middle of a war, in the middle of a jungle, I think the last thing I'm going to do is turn to the one person upon whom my life depends and say, hey, guess what, Larry? I think I need to be a girl. Dee survived her time in Vietnam. We're thankful for her service to our country. We now move to the mid-1990s, where Dee is now living in the greater Los Angeles area. And she gets to that point where she needs to figure out who she is and what she's going to do about it, and does what a lot of us do. She finds a support group of other transgender women and starts to attend the meetings. It's kind of a way to get some support. There are not a lot of us, so we kind of have a tendency to try to find some semblance of community with one another. And she's making some good friendships, but when you're in these kind of settings, you're a little slow about revealing all of yourself too early. Because if the wrong person finds out who you are and spills the beans too early, we could have some disastrous results. So you're a little careful about disclosing just bits and pieces of yourself as you go along. So she's sharing bits and pieces of herself in this group, and another woman is sharing bits and pieces of herself back, and they got to be pretty good friends. And they kind of was meeting a little bit after the meetings and so forth, and for about 3, 4, 5 months they were sharing more and more and more with each other, becoming really good friends when it finally came to the point where they realized the person that Dee was now being close friends with in the Transgender Women Support Group in the mid-1990s in Ventura County, California, was in fact her Green Beret partner from Vietnam. They hadn't recognized each other in their female manifestations. It's not about femininity or masculinity. Okay, Dr. Christine McGinn up here was a former Navy fighter pilot, later was trained as a NASA astronaut to serve on medical rescue missions. Dieter McCloskey played middle linebacker on our high school football team. Donna Rose was a state high school wrestling champion. It's not about what we consider to be boy roles or girl roles. This is about our core identity. Okay, so that's one of the things I'd like you to remember as we go about the day today. We're not who you think we are. And then we're going to get to the second part that I want you to remember. A Java update is available. Good, that's going to fade out. It's not about my sex life. Okay? Yes, we're part of the LGBT community. Lesbian, gay, bisexual are about sexual orientation. Transgender is about who I am. We are transgender women, trans women, male to females, who are attracted to women, attracted to men, attracted to both, and not interested, celibate. And we are transgender men, female to male, who are attracted to women, attracted to men, attracted to both, and not active or celibate. Our sexual orientations, whom we feel we need to love, span the same spectrum as the general population. So it's not about our sex lives. This isn't why we do what we do for our lives. It's about our own personal authenticity and emotional security into who we are. Terms. There are a lot of arguments in my community as to what these are. You may read different nuances of these. I'm not going to hold you to a test on this. This is kind of the generally accepted definitions of these terms. Transgender is an umbrella term that encompasses anyone who is experiencing or expressing gender incongruity. I got a body of a boy, but I think I'm a girl, or vice versa. Or gender nonconformity. And we'll talk about that here in just a second. The first under the transgender umbrella is me, somebody who is living the life full time. Now, those in my community would limit transsexual to those of us who have also had surgeries. To me, that's a little limiting in a very limited community. I'm not into that. But transsexual, by definition, is someone who now lives full time and has had the genital surgery. My problem with this word is, what did I just get done telling you? It's not about my sex life. And as soon as somebody hears transsexual, that's all they hear, that middle syllable. Heterosexual, homosexual, transsexual. No. Because the other two, again, are about orientation. This is about my core identity. So personally, I prefer transgender. Others don't. Go with the flow. Under the transgender umbrella also comes cross-dressers. A cross-dresser, by definition, is a man who wears women's clothing. It is a facet of their personality. They have no desire to live as a female full-time. They have no desire for any body modifications or hormone treatments. It's just a part of their facet of their personality. Now, you notice I didn't say women wearing guys' clothes. Because women get to wear guys' clothes. Okay? You get to wear hoodies and jeans and sneakers and ball caps and everything like that, but and you're my token guy in the room here, okay? Show up in a dress tomorrow. See what happens. Girls get to wear guys' clothing, okay? Guys don't get to wear girls' clothing. So that's our definition here. Transvestite. This is now considered to be a pejorative term in our community. Technically speaking, it's a man who wears women's clothing, usually lingerie, for the purposes of sexual excitement or recreation. Nothing wrong with that. But again, we don't think of women wearing guys' clothing for that purpose. It's Victoria's Secret, right? It's not Victor's Secret. So it's a very limiting term, but that kind of goes back to the sexual aspects of it, and to call me a transvestite would be now in my community considered inappropriate. Drag queens, drag kings. I mentioned RuPaul. Pure, plain and simple, actors. Okay? I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. John Wayne was never in the cavalry. Okay? Tom Hanks never flew in Apollo 13. I'm just saying. Drag queens, drag kings are entertainers, period. There is a frustration in our community with some of us in the transgender community. I need to live my role full time. I needed to have, you'll find out some other things, some psychological evaluations, some medical evaluations, all of these other things. And the drag queens, people pay to go see the drag queens and be entertained by them, and they're wonderful, they're fun, they're talented, and then turn around and be the ones that also beat me up in the parking lot at Walmart because I've broken the societal taboo of gender separation and segregation. They're not real. There are a lot of transgenders that work as drag queens, drag kings, don't misunderstand me, but because unemployment's horrible in my community, but that's an entertainment aspect. Genderqueer, gender variant. We have a lot of people now that present themselves in a way that you're really not sure whether they're male or female. And there's two parts to that. One goes back to the Ben Barris thing. Okay, our societal stereotypes of what a man or a woman looks like or should act like. And we know what those stereotypes are. If you're a girl, you're not good in math, right? You're emotionally nurturing or you're emotionally flighty, okay, because that's what guys say about you, and trust me, I know that because I used to be a guy. You do ask directions, though. And we know the guys. We know about the guys. You know, they don't ask for directions. They are good at math. You're emotionally strong if you're a guy, or you're emotionally aloof. And trust me, that's what the girls say about you. And I know about that because I'm a girl now. So we know what those societal stereotypes are, and this is a way for people to reject them. You have to get to know the person, rather than say, "Oh, I see a woman in front of me and then ding, 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 ding," or I see a guy in front of me and ding, 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 ding. A number of years ago at Saturday Night Live, there was a character called Pat. I don't know whether a few heads are nodding. It's been quite a while. Pat was gender non-designated in the skit. The whole purpose of the skit was, is Pat a guy or is Pat a girl? And everybody would try to trip Pat up to disclosing. Everybody would try to trip Pat up in a way that they could figure it out. And that was the whole point of the skit. And it was funny, in a way. It really wasn't funny to the standpoint that it spoke directly to our gender stereotypes. Why was it such a big deal? It really shouldn't be. There is a medical condition called intersex. If you've taken biology, they lied to you. They told you that XY chromosomes equals boy, XX equals girl. Not always. We have XY identified women. We have XX identified men. And there are some 30 other genetic combinations that are possible in the human condition, some of which are available and noticeable at birth with what is called ambiguous genitalia. Now, I see you guys all cheat now. You get that ultrasound thing and you take a peek at what you're going to have, right? When I was born back in 1950 or so, we didn't know. Okay? You'd wait for the little thing to come squirting out. Hopefully the doctor would catch you. First thing the doctor would do is turn you around, pat you on your fanny so you'd cry, and then turn you back around and look between your legs. If there's a vagina, congratulations, you have a girl. And if it's a penis, congratulations, you have a boy. Can you imagine what fun it would be if the doctor turned you around and said, I'm not sure? It happens more frequently than you are allowed to know, about 1 in 2,500 births. That's at some level. That's a lot of intersex people in the world. There is a newer term now that is out there. If you do your own research, you're going to run into this more and more, called cisgendered. Cisgender does not fall under the transgender umbrella. Cisgender is you. Now you get to go home and say, hey, I'm cisgendered, okay? Here's the deal. We've had problems trying to define you from us from you. For a while it was trans girl and genetic girl. Well, this might be genetic, so that didn't seem to be right. So trans girl and natal girl. Well, that didn't seem to work out right because a lot of us feel that we were kind of born this way. So that didn't seem to be inappropriate. Cis, C-I-S, is a very little used prefix that means this side of. Trans means to go across. So if I have transgendered, gone across gendered, and you haven't, you have stayed on this side. See, it's still clunky, isn't it? You are cisgendered. So you're going to see cisgender a lot, or references to cis people and trans people. That's just a little educational thing on my part. This is nothing new. The Bible talks about the eunuchs, and in almost every single case, very affirmatively so. In Islam, there are 4 designated genders, male, female. One of these is me, and one of these is trans guys. In Hindu, known as the Hijra, in the old Hindu caste society, the Hijra were very, very low, almost to the untouchable range, almost. Except there was something spiritual about them. So for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, the Hijra made their living by giving blessings. People would seek out the Hijra. Come bless our new house. Come bless my child. Come bless our marriage. They did a lot of blessings because there might be something extra spiritual about them, which is what was also recognized in the Native American society known as two spirits. Many transgender people in the Native American tribes and cultures were very well regarded. Sometimes even the shaman, but usually very high up and well regarded in the Native American societies. So much so that the Zuni tribe, has as its lead god, and it's a polytheistic society. Their lead deity is known as Awanawalona, who is dual-gendered, prized for his courage and his strength, her nurture and her wisdom. So there is a lot of two-spirit well regard in many Native American tribes. In Thailand, known as Katoi, I don't really know what the word is for trans guys. Thailand's a fairly affirming place for transgender people and has probably as many talented surgeons there as the rest of the world in terms of doing surgeries for transgender people. What we've been able to find is over the course of human history, throughout all cultures, there has been a name for us. Here we say transgender or transsexual. The first person to take a good clinical look at us was a sex researcher in Germany by the name of Magnus Hirschfeld. He started to look at particularly gay and lesbian people and wanted to do some research, but also encountered some transgender women in his research and got a little bit more interested in what this was all about. The problem that we have is that Magnus, in Germany, 1935 is not a very healthy place. The Nazis weren't as thrilled with the lesbians and gays and the transgenders as they were with the Jews. So Magnus flees Berlin. He, however, did help nurture the transition of what we now believe is the first woman to undergo, and I'll say modern-day surgery, 1930, Lily Elbe, who actually had 5 surgeries overall. He helped help her transition possible. Unfortunately, after Magnus left Berlin, he went to Paris, where he then subsequently died of the flu, and then we have World War II. The next person to take a good look at us clinically was a researcher here in the United States by the name of Harry Benjamin. And it is he who helped nurture the transition of what most people here in the United States believe was the first transgender woman, her name Christine Jorgensen, who in 1952 goes to Denmark and then comes back to newspaper headlines. Former soldier, now blonde beauty. Christine became a wonderful advocate for the transgender community, made a life for herself as a celebrity and as an educator, and a very attractive woman. Benjamin would later write the first clinical book about us called The Transsexual Phenomenon, much of which is still relevant and accurate in his early research today, some 40, 50 years later. How does this happen? I'm going to tell you, my former life, I worked in radio broadcasting. I used to be one of the hockey announcers for the Portland Winterhawks hockey team. Okay? So what I'm going to tell you here is science. You're hearing it from a hockey announcer. Let's just go with the flow here, all right? What we do know, as far as how did this happen, I don't think we really know, but I'll show you what we think we know, okay? First, at the moment of conception, all human fetuses begin female. Didn't know you were a guy, did you? Or a girl at one time, did you? At the 6th week of fetal development, mom may not know she's even pregnant yet, comes your first hormonal bath in your development. Now, we all know about that fun one that hits around 12, 13, 14, right? Oh boy, what fun that one is. That's your second one. Your first one is at about the 6th week. So our thought is there was something different in mine from yours. And that's kind of where some of our research is going. Some researchers in the Netherlands found the first clinical differentiation between transgender people and cisgender people. How about that? Back in 1995, they were doing some research with brain segments. Unfortunately, at this point, all we could do is do this after a person has died to take their brain out. They found an area in the hypothalamus called the bed stria terminalis. That's what BST stands for. C is, there are 4 bed stria terminalis sites, A, B, C, and M. For the BSTC area, for straight identified men, they found it was very dense, very well defined. The BSTC area for straight identified women was rather loose, not very well defined. For gay identified men, their BSTC area was identical to that of the straight guy. And for the 6 transgender women that they had, their BSTC area was common to that of the straight woman. Okay? So you got that now. This is the, whoops, put them back up, Donna. Straight guy, straight girl, gay guy, and me. And of course, everybody in the transgender community is cheering, saying, aha, see, I told you it was in my brain all along. The only problem with this is 2 parts. One, we couldn't really eliminate the possibility that maybe after 10, 15, 20 years of taking cross hormones, my BSTC area, Donna, my BSTC area was like this and then shrunk. So we didn't have a before and after control system. The other thing is this was never really replicated for transgender men, females to males. What does their BSTC area look like? But at least there was some evidence. This isn't just a whim on our part. Some researchers in UCLA in 2003, led by a guy by the name of Eric Verlaine, were able to do some research. Don't ask me how. Hockey announcer, don't ask me how. They were able to determine that at the 3rd week of fetal development, somehow the brain gets its wiring and its gender designation. So is that what happened for me? 3rd week, my brain gets told you're a girl, and then the 6th week, oops, testosterone, surprise. Maybe, we're not sure. Some researchers in Belgium intentionally introduced too much estrogen too soon into some development of their lab rats. What they got were lab rats female lab rats that acted very male-like. Don't ask me how a lab rat acts male or female. That was their job to do, okay? I'm just reporting the results here. But again, is that what happened here? Too much, too soon in terms of hormones? Too little, too late? Maybe. We're not sure. Some researchers in Australia then totally kind of threw a wrench in the whole system. They tweaked just one gene on the Y chromosome. There, again, we're playing with lab rats here. One gene on the Y chromosome. That's the boy chromosome. They got non-Y chromosomal male offspring. How did that happen? We're not sure. Is there a genetic component? Well, by gosh, there is. We found the transgender gene. Yay, we can all go to bed now. Not really. I took a very good look at this one. What these researchers said they found was an area on the human genome. You know, we've been doing a lot of research on that. They found an area on the what's called the androgen receptor string, androgen being testosterone, that was, quote, more common for trans women than for the regular population. Ouch. That means that I might not have it, and I am transgender. You might have it, and you're not. So that, to me, isn't the transgender gene. We know the section on the human genome that causes the color of your eyes. We know the section of the human genome that causes the color of your hair. We don't know about the section of the human genome that causes transgenderism. Some researchers in Spain took a look. We're back in the brain again. There's, we always refer to this as the gray matter, right? That's actually the outside of the brain that we see all the spaghetti stuff. Deep inside, where it's kind of like the thick stalk of a cauliflower, is called the white matter. And there are several bundles of white matter deep in the brain, one of which is called the superior lateral fasciitis, something like that. Runs from front to back, okay? Connects kind of the front to the back. And what these researchers were able to find, and with MRI technology, was that for men, the average man, it was more dense than for the average woman. And for trans men, female to males, their SLF looked very much like what you would expect to find for a man. And for the trans women, it was kind of somewhere in between. So again, maybe we've got some kind of structural thing going on, biological thing going on, that is behind our need to be whole and authentic into our lives. Some things we do know for sure. Our first recollection or expression of gender incongruity happened somewhere between the ages of 3 and 9. Now, I don't know about you. When I was 4, I wasn't thinking about sex. So it kind of goes back to, it's not about my sex life. We have a lot of transgender children now that are knowledgeable enough unto themselves with supporting families and systems now that are coming out and being whole unto themselves at a much, much earlier age. I can recall being around 7 or 8. And some of us 7 or 8-year-old boys were taking advantage of about a 4 or 5-year-old girl in the neighborhood in the classic childhood game, I'll show you mine if you show me yours. And the neighborhood moms found out, and so my mom sits my brother and I down. I'm the older of the two of us, but he was close enough, and he was part of it. And I remember Mom saying, we're not going to do this anymore, okay? Okay, Mom. And then she said something that stuck with me for 40 years. She said, but it's all right for a little boy to wonder about little girls. Okay. So I grow up thinking what I am feeling, thinking what I am dreaming is normal for me as a little boy. I had been dreaming about being a girl. I had been dreaming about the genie in the lamp. You rub the lamp, the genie comes out, you get 3 wishes, right? I only need 1. I'll give you the other 2, okay? I want to be a girl. Bewitched came on television along with I Dream of Jeannie. You know, Samantha Stevens could twitch her nose, Jeannie would blink her eyes. I wanted that power so I could just, this, and now I'm a girl and now I'm not. I didn't really understand until I was much later into adulthood what Mom did not say. But see, all this time I thought I was normal. I thought this was what I was supposed to feel, how I was supposed to feel in my development of going from boy to man. Mom didn't say it was okay for a little boy to wonder about being a little girl. And that was a big distinction that confused the heck out of me for so many years. I finally figured it out when I was back in therapy at the age of 50, what Mom had not said. Our stories are so similar. It's almost comical in some ways, and it's very sad in others. I was on a radio program here in Kansas City a number of years ago with a trans men friend of mine, and we were asked about our childhoods, and I told on the radio the story I just told you about. I'll show you mine if you show me yours. Michael comes on and talks about being a little girl growing up in rural Kansas and waiting for the Sears catalog to come. Why? So she could secretly look at all the boy toys and all the boy clothes. And I bust up laughing. Now, I worked in broadcasting for 32 years. You don't bust up laughing out loud when somebody else is answering, right? But I had to. Because in Portland, Oregon, there was somebody waiting for the Montgomery Ward catalog to show up. So I could secretly look at the girl clothes. Not so much the girl toys, but the girl clothes definitely. Okay? The sad part is are all too common emotional struggles. In the scroll is a woman by the name of Jennifer Boylan. She wrote a wonderful book called She's Not There. And in her book, her autobiographical book, she talks about going to a cliff in New England, planning to jump off, to end it. It would be easier than to try to transition. Okay? And she says in her book she got blown back from the edge by a gust of wind. Now, she's a very gifted writer. Was she speaking metaphorically? Or was she literally blown back from the edge? I don't know, and I don't care. I've never met her. If I get to meet her, I'm not going to ask. Because too many of us get to that metaphorical cliff. And unfortunately, that metaphorical gust of wind does not come back for too many of us to blow us back into wholeness. We're going to see a couple of numbers here in just a little bit. But that's the sad similarity. I have not talked to the transgender woman yet that has not had very heavy suicidal ideation. A few of the trans guys, yes, but not anybody who's a trans woman. Identical twins. Aiden Key and Brenda Chevis, both born girls. Aiden's now a boy. How'd that happen? We don't know. Behaviorists love identical twins. That eliminates the nature-nurture argument, right? Were they born that way or were they raised that way? Well, they were born the same, they were raised the same. So why is it that twin A does this and twin B does that? That's why they get studied a lot. Identical twins. Chanel and Gabriella Pickett, both born male, both transitioned to female. Unfortunately, both were murdered about 4 years apart from each other, which is another sad commentary in our community. How did that one happen? We're not sure. And in China, we still don't have names yet. Identical twins, both born female, independent of each other, without the other's knowledge. Both transition to male and then find each other later when some researchers, some of their therapists had started to kind of communicate a little bit, and they now have been able to find each other. They're back together. They are transitioning together. We don't have any names yet. We're trying to, they would like to have some privacy to get whole and sturdy and good foundation into their lives. But how did that one happen? We're not sure. And we can take a look at some of the intersex determinations at birth. Remember when I said at birth, you know, we're not sure what it is? The old protocol used to be we would take a look, the doctors would take a look at what appeared to be the penis. If it was long enough, they'd actually measure it. They'd raise the child as a boy, and if not, they'd remove that, create a vagina for the child somewhere around the age of 1 or 2, and raise the child as a girl. And a lot of intersex people had that determination made for them before they were really aware of what was going on, before they could consent, and they grew up all messed up. I'm being told I'm a girl and I don't feel that way. I'm being told I'm a boy and I don't feel that way. A lot of intersex people say they don't feel male or female. But in our society, that you only got those two choices, boy or girl. Fill out your Social Security, fill out your employment form. That's all you got, boy or girl, boy or girl. For the intersex community now, hopefully what we can do is if the parents are cooperating and supportive, we let the child grow up. And at some point, they will, hopefully, usually, self-identify. I feel more of a boy, I feel more of a girl, and then we can start involving them in talks about possible surgeries regarding their bodies, if that is even needed. We are a psychological condition. The Diagnostic Statistical Manual, that's what DSM stands for, is the compendium of mental health diagnoses in the United States. It's called the ISD in the rest of the world. Interestingly, we weren't even in the DSM until 1980. Now, Lynn Conway, who transitioned in the early 1960s, wasn't mentally ill, and I was. Huh? Doesn't make any sense to me. I want you to know what's in there, though, okay? Because this is used against us a lot. It's called gender identity disorder. We're going to change the name soon. As you can see, there's a revision up there coming. It's late, but it's coming. We're going to call it gender dysphoria, which is what it used to be called when it was put in 1980. Here's the definition. Strong and persistent cross-gender identification with the desire to be or the insistence that one is of the other sex. Persistent discomfort with one's assigned sex. There's some body mutilation that happens in my community. Evidence of significant distress or impairment. I kind of talked about the point where we kind of need to figure this out. That's what this is. And that it not be intersexed, although most of us don't get the genetic test to determine this. The reason I want you to know what is in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual is because we are in there. People say, well, you just have a mental illness, hon. All you needed to do was have some therapy and take Prozac. And, of course, I took the Prozac for a different reason, but all it did was give me tinnitus, ringing in the ears, which I still have today. It had nothing to do with helping me on my gender identity challenges. It is also used as a eliminator in employment situations for many, many, many years, up until within like the last 2 years. If you were a licensed pilot in the United States and transition, you had to go through a complete new medical psychological evaluation, and then it may not still be, your pilot's license may still not be granted. That's now changed. This is the definition. And as defined, I stand before you cured. I don't have gender identity disorder. I used to. I don't now. I'll always be transgender, but I don't have gender identity disorder. There's a disconnect between the diagnosis and the treatment. If you have the flu, that's the diagnosis. The treatment is rest. Keep an eye on fluids and all of that stuff. That's diagnosis, treatment. Diagnosis, and if it's a proper one, this is the course of action for our health. Not just crying our eyes out on the sofa. How do we do this? We have our own organization called WPATH, the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. And if you think that's long, remember I said Harry Benjamin in the book? It used to be the Harry Benjamin International Gender Dysphoria Association. I think they blew their budget on ink for their stationery. WPATH is psychiatrists, psychologists, sociologists, doctors, surgeons, other researchers who have all banded together worldwide to help develop what are called the standards of care. We're going to have a process by which Ron, that's my former name, Ron can become Donna, and we're going to have a successful outcome and do it for everybody else. Okay? Now, before we get into this, I want to acknowledge that there's about a 4% regret rate for us, for those that transition. I said it was curable. I'm cured. Nothing else in the DSM is curable, and nothing else has a 96% success rate either. Here's the standards of care. Here's our process. It's slowly improving, but it's not a lot of fun either. First, you have to find a therapist. And out of all of the therapists that you can find here in the Kansas City phone book, there are maybe 6 that are gender identity knowledgeable, at least that I would feel good enough about sending you to if you had gender identity issues. That's not a lot of options, and they don't advertise a lot. It's easier to find them now with the internet, but not so long ago it wasn't that easy to do. This person becomes what's called your gatekeeper. Outside of helping you get through your emotional challenges, outside of helping you try to figure out exactly who you are and what you need to do, everything that happens to you medically, everything that happens to you surgically has to be approved by the therapist. I began therapy at the age of around 47, 48. I get to play Mommy May I with somebody I've never met. That's kind of challenging. So the gatekeeper says, yes, you can have hormones. Yes, you can have surgery. The cross hormone therapy can begin typically after 3, 4, 5 months. The deadlines now are a little less rigid as what they used to be. So you go through some evaluations with your therapist. And in my case, I tell Julie, my therapist, I think I really do want to transition and begin hormone therapy. And she said, well, I think you've made a good decision, and I support that. So she literally writes a letter to my doctor. Dear Kelly, Ron is under my care. Please give him hormones. Give him estrogen. So I literally take the letter of permission to the doctor to get hormones. You don't have to do that with anything else, okay? But you do with this. At some point, we begin what's called the real-life test or the real-life experience. I no longer live as Ron. I am now committed and live full-time as Donna. I will legally change my name. I will be this way at work. I will be this way at the store. I will be this way at home. I will be who I am full-time. But I have to do this for 1 full year before any surgeries are permitted. Okay? That is, if I can afford the surgeries. Now, can you imagine what fun that might be if you get stopped by Mr. Police Officer who wants to frisk you, or by the TSA agent at the airport who wants to check you out? There have been some horrendous situations developed because of that. But if you negotiate the 1 year, okay, and again, you stay with your therapist, then your therapist sends a letter to your surgeon saying, yeah, Donna's done well, she's a good candidate for her surgery. It is a permanent decision. It's an irreversible decision. We don't want this decision to be made on a whim and have bad results. But it's a whole long, long year. And then I got to go see somebody else. I got to get a second opinion. I got to go play Mommy May I with a second person now. And then that person agrees and sends on a letter to the surgeon, yeah, I agree, it's okay. As I said, this is not a fun process. It's easing up in a little bit, but it does work, a 96% success rate. There is a new model now that has been approved called the informed consent model. And I'm anxious to see how this turns out in a longer term format. Anytime you go have a procedure at the at the hospital, somebody shows up with a clipboard, right? And you have to sign a statement that says, I have been given information about my surgery, okay? Appendectomy is called informed consent. The doctor's talked to me about the appendectomy, has talked to me about the risks of this and of the anesthesiology, and I still agree to do this. I think this is a much more healthy approach for us in the transgender community. I'm concerned that we may have more and more negative outcomes. So I'm very interested to see how this is happening, but there are about 6 or 7 clinics now in the United States that are going through the informed consent model. I walk in, I say, look, you know, I've been in therapy, I'm transgender, I need the hormones, okay. I need surgery, okay. I'm an adult, I've been taught and told what this is all about, and I still agree to this process. That kind of eliminates some of the challenges earlier, but as I said, there may be some, I'd like to see more about how this is going to work on a long-term basis. What can we expect? Hormone therapy, that's the first part. What can I expect my body to do? Okay? For the trans women, male to females, we take both estrogen and an anti-androgen, something that's going to block the effects of testosterone in our bodies. Both present in the bodies, the testosterone will dominate. So I could take as much estrogen as I want, and nothing's going to happen. So I got to do something to stop the testosterone. I call it the girl pill and the boy blocker. What can I expect? There will be a cessation of male pattern baldness if that has happened. This is from Wigs.com. This is mine. It won't get any worse, but I won't grow back what I lost. There will be a softening of the skin. There will be some breast development. I had about an A cup. I did have augmentation surgery. There will be a loss of muscle mass. There will be, with that, a loss of stamina. There will be a reduction of body hair for a lot of us, but not facial hair. Girls, you're going to be really jealous. I don't have to shave my legs. I don't have hairy legs anymore. But then you don't have to shave your knuckles, okay? So it's a trade. There will be a redistribution of fat, hopefully to the hips. Mine kind of headed that direction and then made a left turn. And then there will be no effect on voice. It takes me a while to get down here again. I told you I used to work in radio as a guy, and guy radios have lower voices, okay? So I spent my entire lifetime trying to make a lower and lower and lower voice, and then one day I'm Donna, and oh my goodness, we got to go the other direction. I'll just say this: if you're ever in a church and the person behind you is singing a hymn in baritone, don't be surprised when you turn around. That's a bit of a frustration for us. I could do a better job. There's some exercises I could do. I'm just too lazy to do them after all these years. For the guys, they simply take testosterone. They used to get a big shot of testosterone at the beginning of the month. And oh boy, I mean, snowstorm, what the heck? I'm going to go out and shovel the whole neighborhood. The whole neighborhood, heck, the whole county. But by the end of the month, it's like, oh my gosh, what happened? They were having these huge, huge swings. Now it's a little bit more moderated. And it's a lot of times it's not always shots, but sometimes it still is. What can they expect? It will start male pattern baldness if that's part of their genetic makeup. There will be a development of facial hair. It won't be quite as coarse or as heavy as it might otherwise have been for a typical man, but it will be there and it will be permanent. There will be some development of body and extremity hair for them. There will be a permanent lowering of their voice, maybe not all the way down to the baritone range, but it will be there and it will be effective. There will be an increase of muscle mass for them, but with some of them also comes an increase of weight. If you remember watching Dancing with the Stars and Chaz Bono, Chaz is a pretty heavy-set guy now, and that is a direct result and side effect of taking testosterone. It's not because he's lazy, it's not because he's fat, it's not because he eats too much. It is simply the effects that testosterone has had on his body. There will be a toughening of their skin, and there's some stronger facial features will develop. Just a sec. There's about 175 physiological differences between the average man and the average woman. Okay? Literally hair to toenails. The shape, the size, the whole body is just a little bit different. So the idea, the challenge for me is to defeat as many male images as my body might otherwise give off, or present as many female images as I can. Certainly the longer hair, the makeup, the breasts help, okay? Because we need to be accepted in society for who we are. If we aren't what's called passable, we could be in very serious trouble. Some surgeries, I won't gross you out, but I will get through these here pretty quickly. For the girls, we have what's called the vaginoplasty or a labioplasty with it, the sex change, if you will. A very successful outcome for us. The trans guys get a better result with their hormones than we do, but we get a better result with our surgeries than they do, okay? Again, I don't want to gross you out. I can accommodate sex with most men. I am sensate, I am orgasmic. So it's a pretty good result for us. For those of us that can't afford that, and right now I think the minimum price in the United States is about $22,000, and insurance does not cover that. Orchiectomy or castration. Let's get the testicles out of there. Get the testosterone factory out of my body. That's only about $3,000 or $4,000. Tracheal shave. It's an Adam's apple, right? It's not an Eve's apple. I was fortunate. I didn't have much of an Adam's apple there. Facial feminizations. Again, we're going back to those physiological differences between a typical male face and a typical female face. Breast augmentation, I admitted to that. There are a couple of procedures where we can deal with the vocal cords to maybe present a more female voice. I was working in radio at the time, and some of the surgical outcomes are not very optimal. So I decided to stick with what I had and still have, rather than try to wind up with something that would not be usable in any sense on the air. Electrolysis for the beard. Somebody sticks a needle in your face and zaps it with heat or electricity to the tune of about 300 to 400 or 500 hours worth of coverage. It's not a fun thing, but you get to know your electrolysis very well. And my ultimate dream, hair transplantation. Getting closer on that idea. For the guys, phalloplasty. This is where their procedures are a challenge for them. They have to wear a stent, a plastic rod or a metal rod, either in their arm or in their upper thigh, for about 6 months. And then the skin that grows around and over that is then the stent removed. That excess skin is then used to create the shaft of the penis. Bluntly put, it's easier to create nothing out of something than it is to try to make something out of nothing. So we have to have some material. They have problems with erections. Sometimes they have problems with urination. They will also have testicular implants, the sex change part 2 for them if you'd like. There is an alternative process called a metoidioplasty. As testosterone is introduced into a female body, the clitoris will get larger. So the skin around that is kind of excised, and it'll be about a 3-inch maybe phallus-like device. But again, sex is a problem, and sometimes urination is a problem. They will have double mastectomies. A friend of mine here, a male friend, trans man, goes in to have a hysterectomy. That's another, because testosterone is very corrosive to the uterus and so forth. Goes in to have a hysterectomy. Okay? Now, he's a very nice looking guy. He's about 6 foot. He's got a goatee. And the anesthesiologist comes in and is looking at Jake, and it's, Jake? Hysterectomy? Jake? Hysterectomy? Couldn't connect the 2 dots here. And finally, Jake, that's not his real name, Jake looked up to the anesthesiologist and said, look, I'm transgender. If this is a problem for you, I want to let you know now because I want to wake up. And you laugh about it, but, you know, it wasn't so funny. Facial masculizations, again, dealing with chin, nose, brow, and we'll get to wrapping this up here pretty quick. Our emotions. Fear. I cannot be found out. Every guy in the world knows how to pick on another guy. Call him a girl, call him a sissy, That's how you beat somebody else down on the playground and in society. I can't be found out. Otherwise, it's just going to be a horrible, horrible situation for me. And we get into very paranoid thoughts with that fear of being found out. Because of that, depression is universal in our community prior to transitioning. Suicidal ideation, impulse, or action is nearly universal. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. There will be some loss. You may lose your job. In only 14 states in the United States are you protected from being outright fired. It's legal in Missouri. It is not in Kansas City, but it is legal in most of Missouri, legal in Kansas, just to outright terminate you, fire you. You may lose family. You will lose family. You will lose some friends. You're counseled on that. You will lose some economic security. And there's a sense of grief. I won't ever be a hockey announcer again. And I loved that. So I kind of have to come to terms with that. I used to coach girls softball for 16 years, and I loved that, but the chances of me being able to do that again are probably pretty slim as well. There are a lot of things about my former life I'd like to have back, but I had to let go. The other side of that is I didn't get to be 9, in a little jumper with Mary Jane's, or wear the green velvet dress at Christmas, or anything like that, or Sweet 16. So there's a life I didn't live that I kind of grieve as well. The flip side is self-realization is a very powerful thing that we talk about a lot in our schools, in our societies, and emotionally, and until you've actually lived it, it's kind of hard to really fully understand it. And then our own personal acceptance. I'm okay with who I am. I was okay with who I was before, but I'm really okay with who I am now. No more conflict, no more suicidal ideation. There is peace, there is calm, except when you tick me off with something. This was really weird. We're counseled about the emotional changes that are going to happen. We pray about the physical changes that we would like to have for our bodies. Nobody talked to me about spiritual changes. I was never in a church, not interested in the church, not interested in God, not interested in faith, since maybe I was about 10. And as I began to grow into myself, and as I got to be more authentic into who I was, I got to be a little bit more spiritual. And I'll make a very long story short. On November 11th this past year, I was called to be the pastor of Zion United Church of Christ up in St. Joseph, Missouri. So I have gone from not even agnostic, non-Gnostic. I've gone from non-Gnostic to Christian minister in the span of about 10 years. That was a huge surprise for me. Let us self-identify. You may think I'm transgender. You may even know I'm transgender. Psst, hey, Donna's trans. Don't ask. Let me disclose that to you, okay? And don't ask about our surgeries. It's kind of rude. I don't ask you about your body. You don't ask me about mine. Like, hi, I'm Donna. You go up to a guy and, hi, I'm Donna. And your name is, and can I, how long is it? I don't ask you, so don't ask me. Because a lot of us don't have the surgeries. Either we can't afford it, medically it's not indicated or allowed, or just not interested. What's between my legs is really none of your business. Pronouns, get it right. Okay? I'm not a he, she. I am not a she, he. I am not an it or thing. Okay? I am she. I am her. This is another way of trying to demean transgender people. Okay? You'll see this a lot too. So what do I call you? Well, I said transgender, right? I don't really like transsexual, but we're okay with that term for some of us in the community. Don't ask me about my surgeries, if I've had it or not. I have. Call me she. I'm not a he. What do I call you? Well, the simplest thing to do is to just like with anybody else, call me by my name. And I snuck that in there because it's my presentation, right? Real quickly, here is why I'm here today. We're going to go through some numbers. Some awful, awful, awful numbers. 97% of us report harassment or mistreatment in the workplace. 97%. 47% report a negative employment outcome, demotion, unwanted transfer, and that means unwanted transfer even maybe to a different community. half of that number is outright termination. 1 in 4 of us have been denied needed medical care, and I'm not talking transgender medical care. I'm talking a broken arm. Was not covered by their insurance. The woman broke her arm playing softball. The company would not cover it. Why? Because they didn't cover transgender medicine, and if she hadn't transitioned to being a woman, she wouldn't have been playing softball on the women's only team that night to break the arm. Claim denied. Okay? And it gets worse. We'll shorten it up for you here. 1 in 5 of us are or currently are homeless. Or have been homeless. 1 in 7 of us are currently living on an income of less than $10,000, and a lot of college students can certainly relate to that challenge, right? Only we don't get to call up mom or dad and say, hey, send more money. This is the real reason I'm here. 41% of us. We had a survey of about 6,500 transgender people in the United States about 3 years ago. 41% of us acknowledge attempted suicide. Now that doesn't count the ones who succeed. And I'm one of the 41%. On the night before Thanksgiving 2003, I took a knife to my wrist. Unfortunately, it was the dullest knife that you could have found in 6 states. So I didn't do a lot of physical damage, but the emotional barrier had been broken. I got help. I'm very thankful for that. I was able to then get into my own wholeness. But this is a number that has to come down. The average suicide rate for the general population is 1.6%. Ours is what, almost 30%? 300 times higher than that? This number has got to come down. And that's why I'm here. 63%, this is our school settings, folks. 63% of us report being harassed or mistreated for our gender expression at school. 1 in 5 physically harassed, 1 in 8 physically assaulted, beaten up. 61% don't feel safe enough at their own schools. We're talking middle schools, high schools, and colleges alike, to the point that 1 in 3, particularly in high school, have skipped school in the last 30 days, or will skip school in the next 30 days. It's because they don't feel safe at school. A higher incidence of bullying, we now know from studies, results in at least 1 full grade point lower in academic achievement. A 3-point student who has been bullied will become a 2-point student. A 2-point student being bullied will become a 1-point student. Dropout rates are horrible. And over 75% of students, high school students, report hearing homophobic or transphobic comments in their school settings from their teachers or other staff. Not just the students, teachers and staff. That is a situation that also has to change. So with that, I thank you for your time. We do have some time for questions here. As I said, this is an open forum. Ask away whatever you want. Fair enough? And thank you for your time. Now, you had a question, so we'll start with you.
Oh, I was just curious. When you said permanent, when you're talking about using the hormones, permanent changes, is it permanent if they keep using it or even if they stop?
Well, it's pretty well considered that hormones are hormones for life. Certainly a male body, even though we've been getting, I keep laughing at all of these commercials, low T. We've been getting these low testosterone commercials. While a male body will develop less and less testosterone over time, there is always some present. So a male body, which is what I was born into, has some hormone involved. The female body, as we do know, goes through menopause somewhere in the middle 50s. And incidentally, this is cool. It wasn't cool. I went from a second puberty to menopause, because you have to stop taking the pills when you have your surgery. So it's kind of an enforced menopause. I went from puberty to menopause in like 4 years' time. It is considered for us that it's hormones for life. Fortunately, estradiol for the trans women is not very expensive. I don't know what the costs are for the testosterone for females to males, but I can't imagine that it's a whole lot more expensive. But it's a medical expense. And a lot of times that's not covered either by health insurance in many, many cases. So yeah, I'll be taking the girl pill for life. Or as I say to my pharmacists, it's time to renew. I don't want to go back.
I was curious, you talk a lot about your own personal, emotional health and stuff like that. And I don't know, you don't have to answer, but if you were in a committed relationship with a partner and if you had children or if you wanted to have children, and how do you think what you have gone through affects them? Okay,
well, we'll back up. I was married. My transition happened after my first wife and I separated, and it really had nothing to do with this. And I do have 2 daughters. Jen's 34, and Amy will soon be 32 here. So my first relationship had fallen apart. It didn't really affect that relationship, but it did have impact with my 2 daughters, and they did struggle with it for quite a while. I am very fortunate. I'm very thankful that both have stayed in my life. It was the scariest day in my life. See, when we go into therapy, they tell you you're going to lose people. And I had talked it through. I had found the place in my heart where I could lose everybody in my life. My mother, my father, my 2 brothers, my aunts, my cousins, all of my best friends, my coworkers. The ones that I would not admit to being able to tolerate losing were my 2 daughters. I could talk about losing one but not the other, and then the next week it would be this one and then not that one. I could never, ever come to terms with possibly losing them both. I'm very thankful that I didn't. If we get some time, I'll read you a letter that both of them sent independent of each other to me. But I am now remarried. My new wife, Christy, and I have been married for 10 years now. And we got together. She knew I had not transitioned. She knew it was a possibility when we entered the relationship. So it wasn't a surprise to her, but even at that point as we got together, it was not a certainty that I was going to transition either. So I'm very thankful for being able to find a second relationship, given the status that I was in at the time, and we're doing pretty good.
So you were still living as a man when you met her?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, the question now is, in some people's minds, are we still legally married? We got married. I was a boy. She was a girl. I was a boy. She is a girl. And now I transition. Legally speaking, the marriage is still valid, but it isn't always recognized as such. Okay? Because there's no way for somebody to undo a marriage. The only people that can undo a marriage is the people in it. And we're still committed. Although there's a very high incident of divorce in our community, probably understandably so, for those that have a partner in the marriage that does transition. But I know a lot of people that are still together too, so you have to honor that. Yeah.
Did you have anybody in your life that was in your support system that not only was like 100% behind you, but I guess kind of had that aha moment with you, like no shock that you were?
No. Everybody that I came out to and I told had no clue. I was very much. I mean, I'm not a big macho guy. I never pretended to be a big macho guy. But I was involved in a lot of guy things. I was involved in sports. I was involved in, I still like a lot of, quote, guy things. But nobody had a clue when I came out as being transgender. Not even my daughters. They thought when I called them together to come and talk to them and explain my truth to them, they thought I was going to come out to them as being gay or bisexual, and they were okay with that. So this was a big, huge surprise for them. Nobody saw it, not including my parents. My parents had challenges with it. We didn't speak for over a year, and I was only 10 minutes away from their house, and it hurt. I was able to reconnect with my mother before moving here to Kansas City, and then I was able later to reconnect with my father after my mother passed away. It's a very long, involved story. We don't have time for that. But I'm very thankful that I was able to reconnect with both of them before both of them passed away. But I still have one brother that I don't talk with. My dad, when my mom died, my dad said I could not come to her funeral. as Donna. And my brothers backed him up instead of trying to look for a way that we could make this happen. I've connected with one of my brothers because he was the one that got stuck having to take care of my dad after my mom passed away. And his son, my nephew, who is now 17, my gosh, kids grow up too fast. Kenny is the one that really broke the ice in my family because he had the opportunity to take a trip with his mother to 3 different places in the United States. And he saw Kansas City on the list and he said, I want to go to Kansas City because I want to go see Aunt Donna. It had been kept from him. He found out after my mom's funeral because Uncle Ron wasn't at Christmas, and Uncle Ron wasn't at Thanksgiving, and Uncle Ron wasn't at Mother's Day. Where's Uncle Ron? Where's Uncle Ron? Where's Uncle Ron? And now Uncle Ron is not at the funeral. Where's Uncle Ron? And they didn't tell him. And it was from another cousin who told Kenny, Uncle Ron is now Aunt Donna. And at the age of 8, little Kenny, my father's namesake, Kenneth Eugene Ross II, went to his mom and dad and said, why didn't you tell me? And then later said, I want to go visit Aunt Donna. And that helped a lot. It certainly helped with my father. So I do talk with that brother. I don't talk with the other one. Okay? Yeah.
I'm interested about the estrogen. When you were saying you started taking when you said cross hormones, that's with the estrogen and the
anti-androgen.
Okay, the reason why I asked, because how did you feel? Because I know my doctor and when I have the menopausal symptoms, and for the person who wants to get this hot feeling in it.
Oh, yeah.
You all had that before too.
Yeah, trust me, we're talking here. This is girl talk.
I want to know how did the estrogen make you feel when you started taking it as a male and
to be honest with you, at the beginning, it was more an emotional. I didn't really sense anything. You don't really feel anything. Again, the old protocol used to be massive doses of estrogen early. They also required 3 weeks on, 1 week off to kind of mimic a woman's natural biological cycle. So you'd have a lot of hormones, a lot of estrogen for like 3 weeks, and then boom, you're off of it. And so a lot of trans women were also emotionally screwed up, Yeah, you could cry, you could laugh. It was all inappropriate. I didn't do that because by the time I transitioned, the medical protocol had changed. So I just started off at a very low dose.
What was your dosage?
At the time, it's okay. I take estradiol. I don't take Premarin. And at the time, estradiol I was taking, I think, 4 milligrams. I got up to 6. I'm back to like 3 or 4 now. Estradiol, D-I-O-L. And again, I'm a hockey announcer, I'm not a doctor, but if you need to take hormones, my recommendation would be take estradiol, not Premarin. There have been, well, one, it's cheaper. The other thing is there have been a lot of studies about hormone replacement therapy for postmenopausal women such as yourself, and with an increased risk of breast cancer. And it's because of the way the two drugs are made. Estradiol is much safer, and all of the breast cancer research has been done with Premarin because it's the most dominant and most commonly prescribed. But estradiol is way cheaper.
Estradiol, this is the female hormone.
That's the female hormone. Yeah, talk to your doctor about it. Okay.
Just put me on the.
Just say, I would rather take estradiol than Premarin. They'll know how to make the change.
What about breast cancer and things like that?
It will help. Yeah, it'll help reduce that possibility. Yes.
Okay, cancer.
Yeah, we'll talk after. Yeah.
You talked about like going through therapy and whatnot previous. Was there any ways any changes that you didn't expect for that you kind of identified?
Well, as I said, the biggest one for me was the spiritual thing. That certainly was the biggest change for me. There wasn't. This is a really weird one, okay? And it has to do with perspective. I was always the short guy. I grew up always the short, me, Ricky Roush, and Brian Fitzpatrick. Okay? Depended on who had this much growth over the summer. One of the three of us was going to be the shortest one in the class. All through grade school, all through high school, and even as an adult. Okay? I've always been the short one. When I transitioned, it dawned on me about 2 days into it. I went from being, I was working at a radio station at the time. We had about 25 employees, roughly 50-50 boy-girl. The day I transitioned, I went from being the shortest guy on the staff to being the tallest girl. Okay? I no longer feel short. In some ways, I'm kind of tall now. It's really, really odd. That is one that I totally did not see coming. The sense that I was, and my best friend back in Portland is like 6'5". You know, we used to have a lot of fun with him being tall and me being short and all this other stuff. So I was able to come to terms with the fact that I was going to be short, and that I am short, or I was short. I haven't gotten any taller, but I don't consider myself short anymore. So that is a really weird side effect. The other thing is that it's been interesting to see who stayed with me and who didn't, because that's hard to predict. You may say, well, you know, I don't know, Andrea, she won't. But, you know, those sometimes are the ones that do stay with you, and the ones you could have swore would be your best buddy through all of this aren't. And then the other fun I've been having is watching our interactions based on gender. I did a whole lecture up at North Dakota State University back in October just on those observations of guys and girls in society. Be a girl and go to the auto parts store. Oh, Mr. Helpful's going to come real quick. Okay, may I help you find something, ma'am? And I so wanted to tell, the first time it happened to me, I needed a thermostat for my car, right? It's a $10 part. I so wanted to tell him, yeah, you can help me. I need the temperature little thingy for my little red car out there. Instead of telling him I need a thermostat for a 1999 Escort ZX2. That's fun. That's interesting. Go to the store. Anybody can do this too, okay? Go to the store and smile at everybody you see, okay? Make eye contact with them and smile. You don't have to say anything, just smile. Now, if you're a guy and you smile at another guy, that other guy kind of like goes, huh? Sometimes, not all the times. I mean, you know, he may be thinking that you're smiling because you got a Budweiser shirt on or something or whatever. But guys don't typically smile at guys randomly. If a guy smiles at a woman, sometimes she gets defensive. Oh, what does he have on his mind? You know, I'm just here for some, you know, cereal. I don't need all of this male kind of stuff, dominant stuff. Just, you know, leave me alone. But if a woman smiles at a guy, a lot of times he'll smile back because he's kind of flattered somebody's taken an interest in him. And if a woman smiles at a woman smiles back because it's a sisterly thing. We're all in this together, right? So that's just a little way that you can experience your own gender differences in our society. I got a ton of those stories. It's really kind of interesting to see that in an academic way. I needed to do this for my personal wholeness. And I've been blessed in so many ways that this has made me grow in a lot of senses. But a lot of times it's just fun. Just to sit back, and I mean, I'll go home and talk to my wife and say, you know, well, this happened, or this happened, and we get, you know, a great big laugh out of it. Because I get to observe literally how men interact with women, women interact with men, and 98% of the time it's just downright silliness. So it's kind of a lot of fun. Any other questions? Yeah.
My question is, well, I don't know how old you are when you transition, but why did you that long, not soon?
Part one is what my mom told me back when I was 7 or 8. That it's okay for a little boy to wonder about being a little girl. I was probably 20, 30 by the time I realized that maybe what Mom said then maybe wasn't right, but I hadn't really registered as that had been holding me back. I then get into life. I'm married, I have children, I have a career, and I have a very public career in radio. The idea of transitioning just was not a good idea. And actually, when I did finally transition, as you might expect, it did wind up being a newspaper story. Okay? Try transitioning and have it as a news story. And I knew this was going to happen when it did. I was very fortunate in the person who wrote the story here was a very good friend of mine and did a very good job on it. But that's a very intimidating factor. I'm not only going to have to come out to family, I'm going to have to come out to the world. And then, I was married, I had children. My first marriage falls apart, so now that's kind of gone. My children are now older. They can survive on their own, so that's now kind of gone. I had kind of got it in my mind somewhere that they didn't allow people over 40 to transition. I don't know where I got that notion, but because of the internet, I was able to find other people my age and even older who were transitioning. So now that's kind of gone, and all of a sudden I'm kind of realizing all of these fences that I'd put up trying to keep me in being a guy were no longer there. And now what am I going to do? And that's kind of how it snowballed from there. I'm encouraged by the young children who are courageous enough to say at the ages of 3, 4, 5, and 6 who they are authentically. I would not have done that. I would have been afraid to do that, even into my teen years. But the world's getting a little bit better each and every step. Anything else? I will say this much. If after you leave, you get going down the hallway or you get into the parking lot or you get home and you go, oh man, I wish I would have asked. Write it down, give it to Andrea, she'll send it to me, and I will respond. Okay, this is about learning. This is about killing the myths. This is about getting information to you. And so just don't think our time together here was the way we did that today. So thank you for your time.